Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too. We're going to continue honoring Michael Meade as one of my Dharma tributaries, and his talk about what I call the dance of gender. But first, I need a disclaimer, right? I'm a cisgender man, so I'm not claiming to talk about anyone who's in a non binary identification or gender fluidity, and I can't speak about the spirituality of the gay experience. So, that being said, I'm welcoming those insights, but it's not what I'm about. I can't speak about that authentically. But yet, mythology has something to teach us that's beyond gender. It endlessly feeds the nurturance of one's soul, and the modern world is uncovered by mythology. There's been a collapse of mythology, so many of us don't know where we belong or how we fit in. And the rituals that the ancient cultures used to do were enactments of the myth. And without ritual, there's no connectedness to the great other. And you can see the world is running around without a canopy, a sacred canopy, to cover it. So, initiation also served to help boys and girls move into young adulthood and see what a mature masculine and mature feminine perspective would be. So how do you know when you're an adult? How do you know when you're supposed to take on those responsibilities? How do you know what your responsibility to the community is? That's what's missing today. But when you start to study with a teacher, the African proverb says it's like the person who wants to get out of the rain who jumps into the ocean. The teacher is going to bring on the trouble a little bit more, and it's going to force you to find the right kind of trouble. Now, when it comes to the dance of gender, certainly in the patriarchal traditions, which we certainly have received with all the things we can criticize about it, but they do have some interesting things to say that people who are in relationship for a long time would probably understand. They say relationship is like a blanket. If you totally wrap yourself up with it, it begins to irritate you. But if you cast it off, then you feel cold and alone. So how do we find this balance that in the old days might have been simplified to simply saying men plow, women seed, men hoe, women water, men harvest, women collect, men cut, women thresh, men mill, women bake. You understand? Each gender has its own ground. Each gender can stand in its own power. Each has its own style of words, beauty, tools, weapons, and mystery. And because in my past flamenco dancing really appealed to me, if you understand the duende, the spirit that comes up from the earth, have you ever seen flamenco dancers? Men and women, they both have such passion. They each speak in their own language. They have their own gender ground. It's unbelievably intense and beautiful and extremely erotic. It really connects you to the depth of your soul and the passion that gives you vitality and aliveness. So keep dancing, it's really important. But one of the problems that I see for young boys coming up and the hardship of coming up is there's an awkwardness in the early stages of life. And I'm sure this is true for girls as well, but right now I'm just speaking for the male gender. The early stages of growth are filled with clumsiness, ignominy, so much unfinished business about your body and what's going on, and very, very little initiation from older men initially about adulthood and responsibility. And then you're thrust into the world without any preparation or guidance. Like they say, don't let a man be in a tent alone with a woman before you teach him how to dance. Don't give him a weapon before you teach him how to dance. You have to soften a guy up in a certain way and make him sensitive. Otherwise, he'll have a very difficult time communicating with women. And this preparation also doesn't really prepare you for taking responsibility for a family. So these are complex issues, but the idea is not to try to get rid of the complexes, but to deepen them and widen them with other areas, other images, right? I call it the romance with your imagination. How do we fill this out? Because without these contraries, without these dual things that we face, there is no progression. And since you can't have one without the other, so we say that joy is what impregnates, but sorrow brings forth. So you have to learn to balance these two energies, these two emotions inside yourself? What are the things that bring you that sense of celebration of life? And also, a lot of things happen to everybody along the way that are filled with suffering and pain, and you have to find a way to bring forth from that some kind of birth. The wound is a womb through which you could give birth to something. And various kinds of symbols can be used to portray what we're doing in life, such as searching for the Holy Grail, the cup that caught Christ's blood, that supposedly in its presence you're healed and you have a spiritual revelation. But the thing is, the Grail is also a symbol that each person sees differently. Everybody sees something different in it, and each time you come back to understanding the symbol, you see something different each time. And as you grow, it grows with you and keeps feeding you forever. So I guess we have to understand, what are we talking about when we talk about fact, simile, and metaphor? Because not everything is provable, and we often identify with things that we either can prove or can't prove. So let's have a little talk about that. What is a fact? If I told you that the Lincoln Park Zoo had a brand new cub baby lion, you don't have to believe me. You can go to the zoo yourself, and you can look in the big cat cage, and you can say, oh yeah, there's a baby lion. That would be a fact. Now, a simile is where you liken one thing to be like another. Like you get up in the morning and you drink a good cup of coffee, and then you say, I feel like a lion today. That Kodiak roast was unbelievable. But you're not a lion, but you're making a likeness to what you think a lion would feel like, robust and strong and powerful and roaring and going about your day. That would be a simile. But a metaphor is where all of a sudden you make an identity, not a likeness, between one thing and the other. I wake up one day and I say, I am the Lion of Judah. I can't prove that to you. But in a court of law, you can't disprove that feeling of my connectedness to the lion-like quality of Judah as one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So myth takes you inward, moves you backward in time. It's always right here, right now. Myths never were, but they always are. And it's the glue that binds the world together in the unplumbed depth of mystery which all human beings have sprung from. I hope that gives you a little insight and makes you respect your gender and the problems that the genders have. And don't worry, women, students out there, for me, next week I'll be talking about Clarissa Pinkola Estes and all her teachings of the women who run with wills, to try to do justice and honor the feminine experience in mythology as well. Have a great day, and subscribe to the website, and contact me. I'd love to hear from you.